Hi,
Today,
everybody. Welcome to AWT Live, our new live stream show where we'll be getting to know more about some of the people who make the world of Apple tick. And the last time we had Chuck Joiner, that's that guy over there, on was July 15th. There were some technical difficulties that I've since fixed, and we just had some other technical difficulties where my mic was on mute. It's now unmuted. Things should be absolutely lovely. I think they're going to be absolutely perfect. Anyway, you couldn't hear Chuck on the last one, except this little faint voice off in the background, which is sad because it was like the best interview ever. Well, we're going to talk about some other topics today, including what's going on with Apple these days. And to start off, Chuck, you want to kind of reintroduce yourself to people who may not know who you are or what you do.
sure, Steve. Is this on at this point?
This time it is.
This time it is, yeah. Oh, well, I'm Chuck Joiner. I host a show called MacVoices that we're in our 15th year, heading toward an anniversary here in October, where we talk to pretty much anybody in the Apple sphere about what they do, about their opinions on things, their products. Think of it as almost an Apple variety show. That one time you might get me doing a review, the next time you might get a panel discussion, the next time you might get just a one-on-one interview. Some of the new additions to MacVoices, we've started doing a live show on Tuesday nights, right now being broadcast only to Facebook. Hopefully that will switch over to you. Well, not switch over, but add YouTube shortly. And that's such an opportunity for you to come and join the show because we publish the Zoom information. We do it by Zoom, and shortly before the show, so that if you want to come and actually be part of the show, you are welcome to. And a few other things along the way that we're constantly tweaking and trying to make improvements. And I'm having a great time doing it. And it's always a pleasure to have Steve on, and now I get to be on his show.
And it's always a pleasure to have Chuck on the show. And, it has been absolutely great. As I mentioned in the last episode, we've known each other for way too many years. I think when we first met, they were still running Power PCs in Macs. They hadn't done the Intel change. We were right in the middle of it. It was that long ago.
That sounds about right, yeah, because I think we met because you did a Take Control book on, if memory serves, iWeb, I think.
Yeah.
And, then you and I collaborated a little bit on switching the MacVoices site over to WordPress. And, then the relationship has just kind of gone on. So, yeah, you never know where those interviews are going to take you.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? It's definitely been a long, strange trip, to quote the Grateful Dead, which I really shouldn't. But anyway, we've entered the month of September, and this is usually the month where Apple will introduce a lot of new operating systems, and usually we get an iPhone introduction during this month, even though that gets bumped occasionally. Just wondering, Chuck, do you think we're going to see iOS, iPadOS, or macOS Big Sur shipping this month? And what about devices?
I wouldn't be surprised if it's not, for the OSs, if it's not later this month, early next month, just because we had iOS 13.7 drop. And so I feel like, we're almost there. And so many of the betas have come out. They're reportedly still very stable, unlike some other betas. But this time it's very stable. So I wouldn't be a bit surprised if to see it come out. I'm not a big rumor guy. I'm not a big prognostication guy. I am a big advocate of, for heaven's sake, please leave the pie in the oven until it's cooked. And so, if it comes out in November, I'd much rather have it wait till November, December, and let them squash as many bugs as possible, as opposed to, we got to get out on time.
There
is no
schedule.
If you get it out on time and cause me trouble, that's not going to be good. So we'll see.
Yeah, I have to agree 100%. I would much rather see them take their time, go through all the bugs in that massive list, and make sure that things are working. It's funny because I've been running Big Sur on another Mac. It's a MacBook Air. and I just kind of dedicated to doing this sort of testing. And it was stable, but there were a few things that just didn't work properly. There were a few apps that crashed, a couple of things that just, like doing updates. You'd think that being able to do updates of Pages, Keynote, and Numbers would be really easy and something that they would have figured out almost immediately. Yet it took about 3 or 4 different beta versions of Big Sur before I got one that actually updated those apps, those Apple apps, properly. So, I would love to see Big Sur. Actually, I'd like to see all of the operating systems kind of move into October a little bit, just because it kind of fills that month before Black Friday,
Well, and you ask about new machines coming up. It will surprise me if we don't see some kind of announcements here in September, as has traditionally been done, but with later ship dates.
Yeah.
Because that way we know what's coming. And that way, this is going to be a weird year for holiday shopping, both from an economy standpoint as well as just a physical shopping standpoint. But at least we would know what's coming out there and can make those plans. And of course, as Apple people, our plans usually include some kind of Apple device or 2 or 3 by the end of the year.
Yeah.
The other thing that's happened too, for better or worse, Apple has tried to double down on security. And they try to squash rumors, but the supply chain is the supply chain, and that's an awful lot of people to manage and secrecy to manage. And so I think sometimes the rumors get to be a little more accurate, as far as timing and what we're going to see. But that doesn't mean they're 100%. And so don't listen to rumors. Wait until Tim Cook takes the stage, or the virtual stage, I guess, probably in today's world, and tells us what there's going to be.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. Yesterday, I got an email from the guy who runs, I think it's pronounced svetapple.sk. It's a Slovakian Apple website. And they actually do a pretty good job of, getting leaks, getting information, and also doing renders. And they had a render of iPad Air 4, that actually just looked beautiful. Looks a lot more like the iPad Pro, a lot less bezel. They're thinking that it's going to actually have a power button that will also be able to do Touch ID, which is kind of interesting because it doesn't have that extra cost associated with Face ID, in terms of the cameras and everything else that's required. So I thought that was actually pretty cool. I need to get an article out on it because the renders were just absolutely incredible. It really looked good. Not that I'd buy an iPad Air. I like iPad Pro, but that'd be pretty cool. And I think we're also hearing that maybe an Apple Watch Series 6 will come out. And since they always seem to add one big new feature just about with every series, I'm wondering what this year's will be.
There's endless speculation, of course. What would I like to see? That's always interesting because we all use our Apple Watches in so many different ways that what might mean a lot to me might not mean a thing to you. I would think something logical, whether they can achieve it or not is another matter. But if there was some way to, do the blood pressure thing or the blood sugar thing, more down the health area. But for the life of me, I have no idea how you would do that. The blood oxygen probably is a little bit easier to do. But the blood sugar thing is difficult. And I just was at my doctor's office a week ago, and they put the cuff on me, and it's like, okay, so how would an Apple Watch do this? And I don't know. How do you have to? Would you have to cinch it up tight to do it? That doesn't seem very Apple-like.
Yeah.
But I don't know how they would accomplish it. So we're going to see what we're going to see.
Yeah, it's been kind of interesting. We get a lot of items through our AWT Deals shop, our little store there, through a company called Stack Commerce. And one thing that we have been seeing a lot of are I guess you could say Chinese manufactured fitness watches. And every one of them, they say, oh, by the way, we can do blood pressure. But then there's this big disclaimer down at the bottom that says, this has not been approved by the U.S. FDA or any of the other organizations out there. At this time, the only accurate way that you can actually take blood pressure is to go in, put a cuff on, listen to arterial noise, and do all the rest of this stuff. My guess is that Apple, if they can get approval from the Food and Drug Administration, and I'm sure that they've probably been testing in-house, doing blood pressure through the watch for the last probably 5 years. But I'm betting that they're waiting until that day that they can get approval for their method, and then we'll see that as a feature, and hopefully it'll go back 1 or 2 or 3 generations on the Apple Watch as well. But I understand that they can do it with the same technology that they use just to take your regular pulse and do the cardiogram. So could be interesting.
I don't know. I mean, okay, so first of all, I'm not a physician. I have no medical training at all. That's probably the place where you least want to listen to me. But I've listened to what my doctor said, and I got one of the automatic blood pressure cuffs for home. And he said, look, it's not as important that be deadly accurate.
Yeah.
What is important is that it's consistent. And then that you bring it in and we kind of compare your readings with our readings. And that way, then we have some idea if there's a big variance. And I thought that was a really interesting way to look at it, that, okay, I don't, does 1 or 2 points make a difference? Probably not. 10 or 20, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
And if mine is registering ridiculously high all the time, then I need to either go see my doctor or figure out what's going on. And the consistency thing was the way they looked at it. So look, we really almost don't care what your home thing says, as long as it's consistent and we can compare it and figure out whether it's the calibration that's off, so that you're just getting inaccurate readings. Yeah, what it's worth.
Yeah, I think one thing that you will see if they're able to actually do almost continuous blood pressure monitoring. There are a lot of people, my wife is one of them, she's got very normal blood pressure, but I'm trying to remember what they call it. It's, anytime you go to the doctor, your blood pressure goes up like 20 points. And so what we found is that actually happens at home as well. So if we're using one of the blood pressure cuffs that we've got around the house, I will take it once. It's usually high. I'll take it again 10 minutes later, and it's at that normal reading. And it's just that, kind of building it up in your brain. Oh, yeah, I hope it's not high this time, doing da-da-da-da-da. With the Apple Watch being able to do this all the time, they could probably do like an hourly average, if they're able to do that. But like you said, that's, up to the brains at Apple to figure out, and up to the Food and Drug Administration to give the thumbs up or thumbs down on it. And I think right now they're doing the thumbs down.
Yeah, and let's not forget that the EKGs or EEGs, that they do, are not medically approved or FDA approved. But we've seen plenty of instances in the news, and and you and I have some mutual friends that have actually had their. I mean, maybe it did save their life, but at the very least, it prevented them from having a problem. And very objectively. And so, it's. If you take it for what it is, and not maybe what everybody thinks it should be in a perfect world, it could be a huge boon to your healthcare.
Yeah, I love the fact that, so many times, like you said, mutual friends who have actually gotten notification of tachycardia or, one of these other cardiac issues where they're able to say, wow, my watch just told me that I've got a problem. My pulse does seem a little fast. I think I'll go to the doctor. And then they find out that they need a pacemaker or, an ablation or something going on just to resolve the issue. And, we're constantly hearing those stories about how the Apple Watch saved someone's life. I personally, I was, wishing that I had this last year when I think you probably heard the story. I had a fall got up too quickly. I'd gone to bed. My wife needed something. She said, "Hey, could you go get me something?" Got up too fast, walked at my normal, really fast pace, and passed out and hit my head right on the edge of a kind of a half wall. Ended up in the hospital for a night. And, minor little, not really a concussion, but I had 3 broken bones up here, during the time, bloody nose like you would not believe. It was pretty nasty. But I kept thinking, what if I had been at home by myself? And, this thing, I've now got it set for, well, I think it defaults once you're over 55, but it's set for that automatic SOS call if I fall and I don't move within 60 seconds or respond within 60 seconds. That's a lifesaver.
And Steve, it's been not exactly a joke, but it's like, okay, this is for the senior crowd and all.
I've fallen and I can't
No, it's
get
not.
up.
I think it's for anybody. I mean, and especially anyone that lives alone.
Yeah.
Whether you have any problems or not, you could be 23 years old, hanging a picture or something, fall off a step stool, and have serious injury. So I don't think it's something that is just for the senior market. I think it's for anyone who, wants to have just that little extra piece of protection. And for heaven's sake, it's a setting. You don't pay a thing for it. Turn it on.
Yeah.
It's like insurance. You hope you never use it. You probably will never use it. But if you do, and if you need it, it's there.
Yeah, I've got one friend who, he's a little bit older than I am, but he does a lot of skiing, always has done tons of skiing. And he actually bought an Apple Watch because he gets concerned that sometimes when he's doing, he's a really good skier, but he and his friends do a lot of, kind of breaking the trail type skiing between trees, doing things like that. And he said, if I happen to get ahead of or behind my friends at some of these ski areas, and we're in the back areas, hitting the back bowls, doing all this great stuff, and I fall and I hit my head on a tree or something and I'm knocked out, I want somebody to be able to come and find me almost immediately. So good stuff. Like you said, it doesn't matter how old you are. I saw something the other day where there was a young woman who basically wasn't watching where she was going, probably looking at her phone, but she tripped, kind of fell backwards, hit her head on the pavement, and was knocked out. Now, fortunately, there were people around and they helped her out, but and this was local. But I kind of look at that situation. What if she had been out walking on her own, just to be able to have that, that SOS call, that somebody saying, "Oh, well, we know where this latitude and longitude is, and they haven't responded. Let's go." Wonderful, wonderful service.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry.
Well, no. So if you don't have an Apple Watch, go get an Apple Watch. And if you don't have that setting turned on, look it up and turn it on. And Steve, I'm sure you have something written up at Apple World today. Put a link in the show notes, please, to how to do that, because it might save somebody's life. Yeah,
it is definitely a lifesaver. One thing, let's kind of shift gears here. I love the Apple Watch, and it's amazing how I think a lot of people have gotten to the point that they're very dependent on it. We're also very dependent on our iPhones, and we're hearing rumors that the iPhone 12, which probably is going to be October, November, is allegedly going to be the first 5G network-capable phone. And we've heard a lot about 5G. A lot of the big carriers are actually starting to develop or install their systems out there. Do you think 5G is going to live up to the hype? And if not, why not?
It's an interesting question. So the hype, I think the hype is that 5G is going to change our lives overnight.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite convinced. Maybe it will, and I'd love to be proven wrong, but I think it's going to be like all the other progressions. As we've gotten faster networks, everyone has taken a little bit of time to figure out what that means to them and how they can use it. Now, this would seem to be a bit more of a quantum leap, again, if you believe the hype. And if you believe the hype about the honest to God 5G and not the fake 5G that certain carriers were labeling their systems as, so I think it will live up to the hype. I just don't think it'll be overnight, and that assumes that 5G really does deliver on a practical, pragmatic basis the kind of speeds you're talking about. But think of what has happened now. Here we are. You're broadcasting to two different social media services. We're doing pretty high quality video, and if we both spent a little more money and bought a higher quality service, we could do even better video. So it's all coming. It just sometimes takes a little while for us to figure out what we want to do with it.
Well, I think, we should definitely both be doing, 8K live video today, even though nobody has a way of watching it. But, well, a handful of people got to be doing that. Yeah, I think one of the biggest issues out there right now in terms of the hype is that there are really two different forms of 5G. AT&T, strangely enough, is actually kind of deploying both of them right now. They've got, I'm trying to remember, they're 600 megahertz or 850, but that's their general deployment, so to speak. And allegedly, I looked at their little map for my area. Allegedly, if I get an iPhone 12 and it's 5G capable, I will be able to take that device and I should see a significant increase in upload and download speeds. But it'll max out probably at about 300 megabits per second, which is still darn good. I mean, that's pretty impressive when you think of a handheld device. But then the big one, and it's definitely an interesting technology, is what they call millimeter wave or MM wave. And Verizon and AT&T are both doing deployments in very limited areas. Right now, it's a lot of downtown areas, in arenas, stadiums, that type of place. But that's where things are really impressive because it can, I think they're talking gigabit per second over wireless, which is absolutely incredible. But you're not going to see that everywhere. I think what we're going to eventually see is, AT&T calls that 5G plus. Already they're giving it a name. But I think what you're going to see is, hey, we've got 5G everywhere with that 300 megabit per second bandwidth. And then if you happen to be in this downtown area, you're at a football game, you're at a baseball game, you're going to be able to get this 1 gigabit per second unbelievable bandwidth. And so, it's just like right now. If I happen to, we just got back from a trip where we went up to Yellowstone and Grand Teton National Parks, and we spent a lot of time driving around Wyoming, which has a lot of those blank areas where there's no cell service at all. But when you did get cell service, chances were very, very good that it was 3G. When you got into some of the smaller towns, it was 4G. I think, that's going to kind of translate into eventually 4G is going to be the low end. 5G in the 600 or 850 megahertz band will be the city and town setting, and then, like I said, millimeter wave in the big cities. So who knows? But it's definitely interesting hearing the news about that.
Well, it seems like, and I'm sure there are going to be people that are going to disagree with me, but I'm not sure that I really I want, yes, definitely want, but do I really need that, that gigabit speed? Shouldn't 300 be more than enough for me for what I'm typically doing? And so should that other network be reserved for more commercial purposes?
Yeah.
And it would make perfect sense if it really can handle that much more traffic, then it would make perfect sense for it to be deployed in metropolitan areas and stadiums and places where suddenly, well, at least before COVID, there were big bundles of people, together. Now, maybe not quite as much, but you're still going to have that. Sooner or later, we're going to get back to that. And so it wouldn't bother me. And and again, this is another unpopular opinion, but if I have to pay more for that speed, okay, I could accept that.
Yeah.
As long as you're not giving me, I mean, if you want to really give me something that's a poor, email only kind of speed, like some hotels do.
Yeah.
I mean, hotels are a perfect example. Okay, you can connect to our free network and you can get your email and you can maybe look at Facebook, but don't try to play anything off YouTube or Netflix because it's just not going to happen. So would that be so terrible if you had a basic level and then, enhanced levels for different customers, different classes of customers? That's my thinking. A lot of people don't agree with that. They think everybody should have the fastest possible. Yes, I want that, but I don't know that it's realistic.
I was just noticing we got a message from one of our viewers here, Jeff McDonald. He says, "What up, AWT?" And Jeff and I go way back, probably even longer than you and I, Chuck. I used to work with him back in the old days, and not saying that Jeff is old. He's younger than I am, but we're all getting that way. But always cool to see you.
Nice quick disclaimer there, Steve.
Yeah, quick disclaimer. Yeah, cover your butt, Steve. Oh, man. Anyway, speaking of Apple, since the last time we talked, Apple really hit two big, I guess you could call them financial milestones. First, Apple became the first U.S. company to achieve a market capitalization of more than $2 trillion. In fact, yesterday I think they were bouncing around $2.25 trillion. Amazing market cap number. And they also, on I think it was September 1st, they completed their 4-to-1 stock split. So everybody who had one share at $600 a share or whatever it was now has 4 shares at $150 or whatever it happens to be. Allegedly done to make the shares more accessible to more investors. And comment here is saying, let's see, if you were, or my question, excuse me, I was looking at a comment that just came in, another one here. I'm going to put it up on the screen. This is from Rex. He says he's enjoying the conversation, which is great to hear. But if you were a betting man, would you think that Apple could reach a $3 trillion valuation by this time next year?
No. And not that I don't want it to happen, but I'm not quite sure. I mean, as I've watched the stock run up, as an Apple fan, and full disclaimer, I hold a small holding of Apple stock.
Me too.
I've wondered, I mean, do I agree with it? Well, yeah, I think so, because I think there are a lot of ways that Apple continues to be underappreciated and undervalued. But to hit 3 trillion, and especially with the election in the middle, and we don't, depending on who wins. I mean, I've seen pundits go, if candidate A wins, then it's going to go way up, or it's going to crash. If candidate B wins, it's going to go way up, or it's going to crash. What do you do with that? I mean, who knows? So, there is that. The transition to Apple Silicon could be the thing that pushes it, into that territory. But that's a huge transition, and so
yes,
if it's rough, then maybe it may knock it back or hold it back a little bit. If it's a huge success and was as successful as the transition to Intel, then I think it's very much possible. I just feel like there are too many variables to say yes, definitely, and I don't know if of course, so much of Apple is held by the institutional investors.
Yeah.
And so, they seem to listen to the analysts a lot more. Yeah. So I don't know, but it first of all, it made history as a $1 trillion company. Then all of a sudden it's a $2 trillion in the middle of a pandemic. So is that hype, or is that, a real reassessing of what Apple is really worth? The one thing Apple continues to have on its side is everybody wants Apple products. They are still the Cadillac of just about everything they sell. And some people see that as a detriment, which is really strange to me. But I see it very much as a positive. And so as long as they can keep that going for them, it's possible. I would just be surprised to see the jump from 1 trillion to 3 trillion in that space of time.
Yeah. I kind of have the funny feeling that a lot of analysts have been saying, well, maybe we're going to hit another tech bubble, so to speak. And, they think the valuation of companies like Tesla are way too high, Google, Amazon, the rest of these. But, I tend to be one of those people, I even though I appear optimistic on the outside, I'm kind of a born pessimist. I always think that just around the corner there's something that's going to come up and punch you like that. And I just got to figure that there's something that'll happen that, we'll probably see a slight recession. They keep talking about, well, we had this wonderful V-shaped recovery where, things went down and boy, they just came right back up and everything's wonderful. Well, it could go back down. We could have a sawtooth going up and down for a while. Hey, I wanted to actually call out one of our commenters here. The person who came on as Rex is actually Marty Edwards, who used to be my co-host on Apple World Today Live. And he says that he wants to pass along to you that he really enjoys MacVoices. And he says he's looking forward to Apple Silicon. He games a lot, which is he says is a concern, but if Apple develops their own GPUs, he thinks a lot of game developers might port new games to Apple Silicon. So, interesting comment there.
Yeah, well, thank you, Marty, for the comment. And I think you're right. The performance of Apple Silicon is something that none of us know. And we read the things that Apple's put out. We read then the speculation, the endless speculation from endless speculators, and it's going to be fantastic. Well, I don't know about the first iteration. I certainly hope so, and I have to say that I'm a little bit optimistic about it because look how much success Apple has had doing this with the iPhone and iPad.
Yeah,
that's the thing we all forget. And I think it was Jeff Gamet that had to point it out to me that, Apple's been doing its own chips. It's just that they haven't been putting them in the Mac. They've been putting them in the iPhone and the iPad. And it's like, wow, okay, then they have a lot of experience under their belt that people forget about. And so that's why I'm guardedly optimistic, but I'd have to put myself in the optimist camp for Apple Silicon.
Yeah, one of the things that I brought up recently, I did a thing for MacSales.com, their blog, about, I've been doing retro Apple, and one of the articles I wrote was about the Newton. And I don't think a lot of people realize that the Newton chip, which was a ARM-based piece of hardware there, was really the first Apple Silicon, if you want to look at it that way. So since 1993, they've been using ARM-based chips. They have a tremendous amount of history with this. We're looking at, what is that now, 27 years? Something like that? Yeah, 27 years with that platform. And it just keeps getting better and better. They've been designing their new chips. They're doing a wonderful thing here. I was just going to put a comment out there from Marty. He says, you might not know this if you don't follow World of Warcraft, but the latest beta has the string ARM64-bit inside it. So it looks like definitely World of Warcraft is going to be running on our wonderful Apple Silicon. We hope. Yep. So that's pretty cool. He says that the comment is, this is probably is saying that Blizzard plans to port to ARM64 on Apple, which that could be a big thing. A lot of World of Warcraft players out there. So, speaking of apps, are there any apps that you've installed recently on any one of your devices that you're really impressed with, that you just went, wow, I like this. I've got to put it on my phone or my watch or my Mac?
Yeah, and at the risk of sounding like I'm pimping my own show, I just finished, but I sincerely mean this. I just finished, it's been a week or two ago, an interview with Re-Incubate, the makers of Camo. And Camo is an app that will let your iPhone work as a webcam.
Cool.
And I find this to be phenomenal. Now, there are a number of other apps out there that try it or do it or attempt to do it. And that's kind of my gripe, is that, I've tried a bunch of them. They didn't work. They, were crashy, or they were difficult. They were unreliable. Camo for me has been like bulletproof. I mean, just
Cool.
you run the app on your Mac, you plug your phone in, and guess what? All of a sudden, you've got a super high quality camera that you can use as a webcam. And of course, I've used my 6S Plus as a sort of a dedicated webcam for the other workstation over there. But I've also plugged in my iPhone, my current iPhone, and it gives you access to all the lenses. So that, if I want to do a zoom, if I want to do a wide angle, I've got that. It will do up to 1080p. They did tell me they're working on a 4K version, but it's one that it's not inexpensive. But on the other hand, what I'm talking to you on right now and what I usually use for MacVoices is a Panasonic Lumix DSLR that costs a couple $100 at least, and also a connector whose name is escaping me from Elgato right now, to turn it into something that can be a webcam. And so I've got invested about $400 or $500 in turning this DSLR into a webcam. Camo does it a whole lot less, and the results are just as good, arguably better. So Camo right now is my pick for the thing that I've put on most recently and really just love and use.
Jeff McDonald is asking, he says, do you know what is the last version of iOS that Camo will run on? Or I think he means the oldest, I hope.
The oldest? I don't know. And see, that's the interesting thing. It's really not, yes, there's an iOS app component to it, but there's also the Mac app version. And that's where the real magic happens, because it's taking that signal coming in. Because think about it, right now, I mean, you can plug in your phone or your iPad, pull up QuickTime Player, and see it and record it. It's just that Zoom, Skype, and a lot of the other video conferencing services can't see that as a webcam.
Yeah.
But this lets you do that. And so the answer, frankly, is no, I'm not sure. But I would say that you can go quite a ways back, at least to the 6S Plus. I can tell you that because I've done that.
Wow. Yeah, it's funny you bring up using a DSLR as a dedicated camera, because I was trying to repurpose. I've got a old Canon Rebel or EOS Rebel T4i, and the software that I'm going to hype today is Ecamm Live, which I'm using for the show right here. I love Ecamm Live. It's funny because I tried it a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, and just kind of had mixed results and said, nah, it's not for me. Now I think it's matured. They've added just a tremendous number of features to it. It seems to work with everything. The only real problem is behind the keyboard, me. So it's a wonderful, wonderful app. But anyway, one of their features is most Canon DSLRs can be connected right in as a camera. Now, I tried this. Sadly, it was just like 2 days ago, and I was having mixed results. So I've got to do a little bit more checking there, see if I can figure out what I'm doing wrong. But I tell you, if it doesn't turn out being as nice as I think it's going to be, I'll probably take your suggestion and try Camo.
Well, it's been interesting to watch that the different camera manufacturers come out, and a lot of them are supporting this with some kind of software hack. Some with more feature sets than others. But it always seems like there are only a limited number of their cameras that can do it. And I never seem to have that camera. I don't know. It's like they break in at night and see, these are the cameras Chuck has, and so we're not going to support those. And that's the beauty here with Camo, is if you've got an iPhone or an iPad, the odds are pretty good, unless it's really old, and even then it may. So, definitely worth checking out. And since I'm doing a commercial for them, I should tell you, you can download this and it's a demo version. So
Okay.
you get 720p, you get a watermark, but you really don't have many of the controls accessible to you. But you can find out if it works, and then if it works,
Nice.
then you can do the evaluation as to whether it's worth it for you.
Excellent. Yeah, and I think, the one thing I really have had issues with over the years is getting a webcam. Right now I'm using the built-in webcam on my MacBook Pro. It does a perfectly decent job. I mean, it could be better than 720p, but I think all of us who do live streaming or any sort of video, you're always looking for a little bit more clarity, a camera that maybe makes you look better. I hate to say it, but you want to look as good as possible on the air. And that was one reason why I was testing, like I said, this Canon Rebel over here. Very, very, this is probably a 6-year-old camera. The only problem I had was it would work and it would go along just fine, and then all of a sudden I'd hear a click and it would stop transmitting the signal to my Mac. So, frankly, I don't want that to happen right in the middle of a show. I have enough issues anyway. So, camo.
Yeah, well, you know why that is, Steve?
What?
Because a lot of the cameras that and okay, so folks, I'm not super well versed in this, but I know enough because I've been burned so many times by it, that there is some kind of restriction in, I think it's just in the U.S., that those DSLRs can only record for 30 minutes, and then they are required to shut off. And so it's not Ecamm that's doing it. I'll bet you $100. I bet it's the camera, and it's because of that limitation.
Yeah.
So there are very few cameras that you can just turn on and have it, run. This Lumix happens to be one of them.
Nice.
But that's probably why it's shutting off on you.
Yeah, I had gone in. They had they've got an auto power off setting, and they, say definitely disable that. I disabled it. But, I wonder if that's the thing we're looking at. Is it just, for some reason or another, maybe it doesn't want to, maybe it does something to the sensor in the camera. If you have it running too long, you've got the shutter open and it's taking a look at this. Maybe I ought to try my mirrorless camera, but I don't want to try that. I wanted to.
It won't hurt the camera. So, as far as I know, it shouldn't. But I wanted to make one other point too about just webcams in general. That we're talking about streaming here, and of course or recording video. That's what Steve and I do. But now with the world the way it is, more and more of us are doing business via webcam and conference call and video chat and all. And it's my contention that you want to look as good as you can look.
Yeah.
Now, nobody's going to go out and set up a studio just for video calls, but also, if you've got a phone sitting right there, the odds are that you won't be taking any phone calls or doing anything on it while you're doing the video chat. So for heaven's sake, why wouldn't you repurpose it and look a little more like you're doing broadcast TV as opposed to, doing Wayne's World from Saturday Night Live.
Wayne's World. Sorry, you just had me go down that path, and it was.
That's good.
Oh, God, that's, one of those memories I really shouldn't have brought up. Anyway, we'll talk about apps. How about new accessories for any of your Apple gear that you're impressed with and you'd like to tell our viewers about?
I can't say that I've added any new gear recently. I've been kind of holding out, waiting. I guess the most recent thing I bought, and this is definitely not new, was the 16-inch MacBook Pro when it came out, because that was sort of the machine I'd been waiting for.
Me too.
Again, I'm sorry I keep having to reference this, but before COVID, I was a lot more mobile than I am now, but I'm still moderately mobile. And as much as I would have liked an iMac Pro, it just didn't fit my use case.
Exactly.
So when the 16-inch came out, with the ability to cram all that RAM in there and upgrade the SSD and everything, I spent way too much money on doing both. But now it's a no compromises machine. Now I don't have to say, well, I think I'll wait until I get home, or I think I'll just do that on the iMac as opposed to on my laptop. Now I can do pretty much everything on the laptop. So it's a bit of money, but it's well worth it. And if we see Apple Silicon, come to that device, I can't even imagine what that might be like. So
Yeah,
that's my most recent thing.
I can't wait to start seeing some of the benchmarks. I think that's going to be the big deal for a lot of us out there. Over the years, Apple has done a really good job at their product announcement events of showing, here we are, this is X machine, our former top of the line, and here it is with the new chip. And I can't wait. I think that's going to be one of the most exciting announcements when we start actually seeing some of the Apple Silicon devices coming out. But I have to agree with you. I love this 16-inch MacBook. The screen is incredible. It's fast. It's just everything I wanted. And I think this one's definitely a keeper. Of course. They happen to come out with like a new planform or a new design for the iMac, and it's a quarter of an inch thin and 32-inch 8K screen or something like that. Maybe I'd have to go for one of those, but right now this is it.
Yeah, and I'm afraid I'm a bit of a pragmatist. The designs, the redesigns, they're all fun and definitely they're sexy and cool, but I just want them to work, and I want them to work for me. And so that's why, if we go to a bezel-less Mac, well, fine.
Yeah.
But the bezel one, I'm sitting in front of an iMac 5K, and okay, so it's got a bezel. So what?
Yeah. A bezel and a chin. I always thought it kind of looked like my chin, silver and big, So call me iMac.
And people get bugged about the chin, and it's like, okay, so let's just say you saw the chin off, and what difference is now if that gives you for some reason the ability to give me more screen space, maybe, but other than that, who cares?
Yeah, I agree there. Hey, we're getting down to like the last 10 minutes of the show, so I've got some fun questions. Nothing to do with Apple. Well, maybe. But we're going to have a little bit of fun here. Now, I know that you love live music. Over the years, seen little blasts out there where you've gone to some local concert, you've gone to this venue or that venue. And just curious, what's your favorite group of all time? And it doesn't have to be a group that all of us know of.
It might not be. Unquestionably, there's only one, and that's Kix, K-I-X.
Okay.
These are guys that came from my area, one of the drummers from my hometown. I've been seeing these guys since they started, and I hope this does not come across as misogynistic, guys, because it's not intended that way. But think back to the late 70s. My friends and I when we were telling other people about this band, we'd say, you got to go see, this band is so good that we stop looking at the girls when they're on stage. That's how good they are. And so, and they've had a fair amount of success. I think they've got 7 or 8 albums now.
Wow.
They are unconditionally the best live band you will ever see. Period. End of sentence. I've seen all the greats. I've seen Jagger. I've seen and the Rolling Stones. I've seen Aerosmith, and there's just no better live band because in every single show they deliver. It's just one of those that the professionalism that they have demonstrated over the years has been, just unparalleled. So they play a bunch of the festivals. They do mini tours, different places. I know, Steve, they sometimes will come out to your area, out to Denver. So, yes, it's loud. Yes, it's obnoxious. And that's the fun of it. But yeah, no question. Go. And if you don't know their music, go check them out on Apple Music.
Do they have anything out on YouTube? Any videos at all? So you can.
There's the first one. The video I would definitely recommend is called "Wheels in Motion" from their current album, which is a great introduction to the kind of high energy. It's well shot. It's a fun video, that I actually was there the night they shot that. So
are you featured in the video?
I'm sorry. Say again.
Are you featured in the video?
No, there's one shot as they pan across the crowd that if you see a guy, it's a little blurry, but if you see a guy in a red shirt, yep, that's me.
Yes, he made it.
Yeah.
So I take it that would probably answer my next question, which is, what is the best concert you've ever attended? Just absolutely something you'll always remember.
Yep, every single Kicks concert.
Wow.
Every single. I mean, this is not me being a fanboy. This is absolutely true. I've seen them play to huge crowds. I've seen them play when there are 10 people in the room. They never compromise. They always put on that kind of high energy show. And so, yeah. And I've seen too many of the called the really bigger name bands. And you can tell that every show is good, but some they have off nights, some not. This band doesn't have off nights. They do their thing.
Wow. Yeah, I've got to say, the best concert I think I've ever been to, bar none. I'm a real fan of The Who. I've always loved The Who. They're not my favorite group, by the way, but I've always loved The Who. And they did a concert in 2000 at the Pepsi Center here in Denver. And it was just like they didn't want to leave the stage. They kept playing, they kept playing, they kept playing. And then they took a break. And then they came out and they played for another hour and a half. It was unbelievable. This was when John Entwistle was still with the group. Of course, Keith Moon was gone, but just an incredible concert. It was one of those. The seats that we had were just in the right place. You just got a great view. The sound was amazing, but just the sheer length of that concert was outstanding, and every song was right on. They were really having a lot of fun with the audience. I can remember John Entwistle he says, "How do you people breathe up here?" And Pete Townsend turns to him and says, "You ask them how they breed up here?" Everybody cheered at that, but it was.
Yeah, concerts are a fun thing. If you are not an aficionado of live music and of concerts, you never know what's going to happen. You never know, how good that particular night's going to be. I'm like you, shave Kicks off the list, and then I know there was a band that I always enjoyed, but I've instantly became a huge fan that night was Nazareth.
Yeah. Because
they hit the stage and they played like, I did not expect them to play. They were absolutely phenomenal. And so, you just never know. And that's why you go.
Yeah. It's that, what happens during the concert that just really clicks with everybody in the audience and they go wild. And the energy sometimes is just unbelievable. It's sad because this year, my wife and I were planning on going to see two big shows. The Eagles were doing their Hotel California tour, and that got canceled, which was sad. Unfortunately, they didn't cancel it until like the day before, because this was back in March when we didn't know what was going on. And then we were also supposed to see, who was the other band? It was another, Doobie Brothers. And fascinating thing about the Doobie Brothers tour was that they not only had, and I can't think of his name right offhand, but the original singer, but they also had Michael McDonald. So it was like they were going to cover the entire Doobie Brothers songbook, which sounded absolutely fantastic. So maybe next year. Who knows?
Yeah, let's hope for everybody's sake.
Okay, this is going to be a fun question. If Hollywood made the Chuck Joiner story, which I'm sure that people are lining up to write the script, I plan on writing it, but what song would you want as the theme song, your theme song, on the soundtrack?
Well, first of all, since nobody will see the Chuck Joiner story, who would pay for that? Okay, so that is a fun question. Okay, the most recent Kicks album has the opening song that I would pick as my theme song. Can't Stop the Show.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah, that ought to be your theme song, considering
which seems to be, sort of appropriate given what we're doing here. But yeah.
Well, you can stop the show. I could pull the plug here, or you could hit the finish button, but
Start using OBS again. Yeah.
Yeah. No, anything but
No,
that.
no.
Don't make me do it. Okay. Well, anyway, speaking of live streaming, I love how we segue into these things just so smoothly. What's coming up soon on MacVoices?
Well, funny story. As we had problems, Steve, with the last live stream we tried to do. Just this last week, Tuesday, we tried to do a live stream that featured Dr. MacVoices. Yeah. And for some reason, Zoom and Facebook would not play well together. I'm not sure whose fault it was, but I kept getting 404s, and so we had to scrap that. And we still recorded the show, and it'll be released in the feeds probably starting next week. And I've got interviews with a couple developers in the can right now. I've also got interviews with a couple of Take Control authors with new versions of their books coming out, both for iOS 14 and Big Sur. Cool. And then there are others. I've got a whole map of people that I want to talk to, and people to have on. And so, it's, you never know what you're going to find, but I like to think that you're going to find some things that are interesting and fun.
Yeah, and as Marty made the comment there earlier, he just absolutely loves watching your videos. A lot of times, I don't watch the live shows. Usually what I'll do is watch things after the fact. It's one of those things where you're working on something and you say, I need to take a break. I think I'll watch MacVoices and bring it up. So it's great stuff.
Well, it's funny, Steve, the streaming thing I've not resisted, but I've never really done a lot of, just because it automatically cuts out a piece for your audience, because what we do is global. And so, the people in Europe probably can't partake. The people in Australia probably can't partake. So you really have, that's one reason I release the shows in the feeds. But you also have that challenge, and you have it too, of saying, okay, we're going to do this Tuesday. We do ours Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern. Yeah. Well, I know that's a little tough for some of the West Coast people, but it also is the time that works for me, because I do have a day job, and so you're trying to serve all the masters, and the streaming is tough with the recorded stuff and with the feeds. Yeah, you can listen or watch whenever you want. So each to their own. There is something fun and very energizing about the live streaming, no question about it.
What, including mistakes? Well, the one thing I was going to bring up here too, by the way, for the viewers, the folks who are live or watching us live. Not sure that's a huge number, but at least I know two of the folks that were out there left comments. But we will, of course, this is on Facebook. It's also on YouTube. What I'm going to be doing is actually getting rid of the live recording that's on YouTube, and I'll have an edited version that'll come up, has all sorts of good stuff there. So that'll be out later today and listed on Apple World today. Chuck, where can our viewers once again find you online and on social media?
Of course, MacVoices.com is where you'll find all the shows. I'm on Twitter as @Chuck Joiner. I'm also on Facebook as @Chuck Joiner. I'm on Instagram as @Chuck Joiner. And so, love to hear from folks. Love the creative, constructive criticism. Anytime you have anything to say about a show, sending something in that says this was a terrible show, that really doesn't do anybody any good. I've had that, and I'm sure you have too. Yeah. Tell me why it's a terrible show or why it didn't appeal to you, and let's figure something out. And it may be something that I can't fix. That show may not just have been for you, but criticisms and comments are always welcome.
Yeah, I can recall back in the days when we used to do 2TV Live. There was one show where I got this nastygram that came in, and it was basically saying, I will never watch your show again because I don't like, remember Victor Agreda? Says, I don't like Victor's hair. And I just laughed at that. It was like, the guy was, probably still is, witty. He was a lot of fun on a live show. And they were, making comments about his hair. And, at the time it was a little bushy and stuff like that. And I thought, What a petty, stupid thing to say. And like you said, constructive criticism is always, always something that I know you will take advantage of. But the petty, silly comments, forget it. ain't gonna do it. So anyway, it's a wrap here. I'm going to be, like I said, posting this recording on Apple World Today a little bit later today. It'll be on YouTube, Facebook. It'll be the kind of unedited version. Thanks, Chuck, again for coming on the show. I appreciate that we were able to, discover the muted microphone before this went live, or it would have been really embarrassing.
That would have been great. Well, Steve, thank you for having me, and thank you for all the work you and Dennis do on Apple World Today. It is one of my favorite sites. I frequently quote it in MacVoices magazine and my articles of the day. You guys do just an amazing job. So, especially with being a two-man team. So please keep it up.
Well, thank you very much, and we keep hoping for someday our ship is going to come in, and we're both going to become billionaires, but not today. So. We're not going to become the next Facebook, sadly, but, we can dream. We can dream. Someday that will happen.
Please don't become the next Facebook, Steve. No.
Yeah,
no,
well,
please don't.
Yeah, I don't want to be Zuckerberg. So thanks again, Chuck, and thanks everybody for watching. Have a great day.